in 1934 there was a pogrom in Constantine. My parents and my sister went over the wall to the Arab family who lived next door, and they saved them. When the mob went to the Arab family and they said, "Have you seen them?" They said, "No, we haven't seen them. We don't know anything about them." But they protected my family. Unfortunately, they ransacked. My parents were just married 1 year in marriage, and obviously they had all wedding presents, and they had photos. We have nothing. We have no memento of my parents' marriage. We don't have one single picture of them being married. I have a tray, big tray, which was totally folded one on top. I don't know how they did it because it's very strong. And that's what I have here. The Vichy laws were against the Jews, and they were made to feel that they were different from the rest of the Europeans. My father lost his job at the post office, so he had to work on the docks to carry big crates and to be paid so he could, provide for his family. My brother and sister didn't go to school anymore. This is the only time I can think that the Jewish community provided a Jewish school.
The other story was the day-by-day stories of a very high officer, fascist officer. The secretary of the officer came to work crying, and the officer was very close to the secretary. Why you're crying? Because my fiancée left me. So he called the fiancée, this is a dictator. He called the fiancée, if you don't marry her, I will kill 3 Jews. The man said, okay, I'm married. They prepared the wedding. She was there with his white dress, and suddenly the man just disappeared. Left Benghazi, disappeared, and he came back to Benghazi after the war. They took the 3 and they killed them. '45, when Israel they start talking about the division of the land, as you know. They start the first big, huge, bloody pogrom in Libya. Always in Tripoli, not in Benghazi. Benghazi was riots without killing no one. And then a lot of emissaries from the Jewish agency came and just taught some of Jews of Libya, in Tripoli mainly, to defend themselves.
1952, because people started leaving. People were talking about living in Morocco. Alors here you have a population that is over 2,000 years old in the country, and all of a sudden is talking about living this country of their ancestries. They left through the Shlichim, and it had to be done in great secrecy nevertheless. I had gone with my parents to register in 1956 because Morocco became independent. And the state of Israel was in existence, and there was a great fear because there were a very, very strong anti-Zionist movement in Morocco. You started feeling ill at ease. So what was my experience of that? That we were leaving our hometown and we were going to Israel, a country that we didn't know, and the only thing that we heard about Israel is how the Moroccans were treated, and we feared to be, to have the same plight. So I said to my parents, I do not want to go. I'll stay with my grandmother because I want to finish my studies and then I'll join you. Then, of course, my parents said it's out of the question. They stayed on. And they stayed on until 1965.
From 1954 till 1962. And a lot happened. A lot happened. Events which I can remember. There were, you know, what we call them plastic. I don't know what they were made of, but it was the plastic. And the Arab shops were plastiqués, and you had bombs in the street, you had bombs in dancing halls, you had bombs in a cinema, you had bombs in the milk bar. One event, the one I was referring to, is my niece was at the time 1 year old. She was born in 60. So she was 1 year old, and there was a a bomb in a nearby shop. And being 15 or 16, I actually covered her with my body. And when we finally saw what had happened, I was covered in glass.
You were?
I was, but the baby was safe. The baby was safe. People had to leave in 62, because on the walls there were graffiti which said "La valise ou le cercueil," which was the suitcase or the coffin. Some went to Israel, but of my own family, both sides, we all went to France. It was pejorative for the French to say that the Pieds Noirs came to invade France. And what made life difficult, as I said, we were all in the district in Bab el-Oued. When we came to France, that was the time when everybody went everywhere in France.
So when the 6 days war ended in Israel, it happened that my father, as usual, every morning went to the palace. He was, in fact, the teacher of classical Arabic of the princesses and prince, and he used to write the speeches of the king too. One morning when he went to the palace, in the ante, before getting to the king, you've got a room, a waiting room. All the ministers were there, as usual. When my father got into the room, got up and turned their backs to my father. So he had only one way to go to, one path to go to the king. It would be in between those two lines of ministers who gave their backs to my father. So of course, my father was stunned. He did not understand what happened. And at that point, one minister turned his back and said, "Abraham, you are killing our brothers in Israel. We cannot call you my brother anymore." My father, I think if he could have collapsed and go under the floor, he would have gone. He said, "You know what? I don't understand. Classical Arabic is my language. I teach Quran. I know exactly what you have in your soul and in your body. And now you are telling me I am not your brother anymore because something is happening in Israel." So it's a long, long audience that the king gave to my father that day. At the end of that awful morning, my father went back home for lunch, and my mother said, "What happened?" So he told my mother the story. My mother started crying. So my father said, "Look, think about the positive side. Corinne is going to take her baccalaureate in France. So let's go with her." At the same time, I can tell you that in Algeria, my uncle was killed in his kitchen by his cook. They had an argument about the Jews being Jewish, and the cook was so upset and so angry with my uncle, he took a knife in the kitchen and killed him in the back.
Suddenly, from 67, January 67, a lot of people start to feel some signs. Once the 5th of June, the radio start telling our troops are going inside Tel Aviv and all the propaganda, the pogrom start. Was the first day of our exams at school. Suddenly the priest comes say, all the Jewish pupils on one side, there are some problems in the city, nothing, the exam is... So we heard a lot of noise outside, and unfortunately we called my father, no answer. Why? Because they assaulted already the office and burned it. You can imagine, myself is 13 years old, my sister was 12 years old, and the small one 7 years old. And I remember this moment, we came out of the school, we were the last one because no one came to pick up us, and the priest just closed the door. Yani, finished. No, you cannot go back. And in front of me I see something like thousands of Arabs with everything, knives, torches. We were lucky we just met the someone of the synagogue, Shamash, with his children. He said, listen, don't worry, don't make your face appear that you are scared. And from now I will call you with Arab names, okay? Don't speak Italian, don't speak Hebrew, just speak Arabic. And we went into the mob. I felt that I'm walking, but staying on place, from the tension. And when we arrived and everywhere were Jewish shops on flame, big flames. And we arrived to our home. I saw my father and my mother from the windows, just say, come immediately. Just sit down and just watching the others. My father praying, my mother crying, my auntie vomiting. The other 2-3 men with some knives from the kitchen ready in front of before they will kill us, at least we will kill some. 90 minutes, someone start banging the door downstairs. Luzon, we are the guard of the king. Say, we have order from the king to collect all the Jews and to bring them outside Benghazi to a camp, to preserve, to defend you. Then we stayed there 25 days. Then they came and say, okay, we decide 2 things. One, if some of you want to go back to Benghazi, you can do it, but if the next demonstration, we will not defend anyone. You will be killed. So what is the alternative? We give you alternative. Take 1 suitcase each, 20 pounds each, and you leave. And they took us at night, in the middle of the night, so the mob couldn't notice that the Jews are back, each one in his place, accompanied by 2 soldiers. Stay there, but 3 hours, finish. No, I need more, finish. Everything, yeah? You can imagine, it was terrible, terrible. In the meantime, in parallel, and also the story, we knew it only a month after, an officer came to my uncle in Tripoli, said, listen, we have to take you and to protect you. And they took my brother, my uncle, his wife, 7 children, the smallest one 2 years old, the eldest one 19 years old. And then he took him on the back of the old cemetery and slaughtered everyone. We arrived at Rome, the 27th of June at dawn. The thing that I start thinking in the play, now I will replace the sound of the muezzin with the bells of the Vatican.